I wrote this show to reflect the Black that I am, the Black that I see, the Black girls I know.
I love this full circle moment because the Leigh that I knew has always wanted to create television. You were like easily one of the people that introduced me to production because I would watch how your mind would work and how we would put things together. And I was like, okay, I see it. And then you showed us some of your work. I don't know if you remember sharing situationships with us.
Oh, yeah.
Way back when. And I was like, wow, like I was just so impressed because I didn't know that you could do other things, right? I didn't know you had these type of talents. And so now we are hitting the goal.
Yeah.
You are making television.
Yeah,
this is crazy. Like you are literally living your own dream. What does that feel like for you?
It's amazing. Run the World is situationships evolved,
Yeah.
so it's just to have been kind of harnessing this idea and circling around these characters and circling around this project for so long and be able to be like, this is in the world, this is on television. People know these girls and they love them. And, Starz airs in 50 countries. And so it's just like incredible. Sometimes I talk to journalists and stuff and they're like, when it really is when we were doing International Press Day.
You're like, you saw this?
Yeah, like I'm talking to someone from Paris and talking to these wonderful young women from Brazil and, people in Colombia. And it's like, it's like at first it's your dream and then you give it to the world and it becomes theirs.
Yeah.
And so what I wanted to do was make a show about Black women to show the Black women I knew that I felt like I never really saw, and for the world to say, we really wanted to see these women too. And these are women that we haven't seen. And this is my friends. And this is how we relate to each other. I had a male journalist be like, I feel like they remind me of me and my guy friends, just
so
like doing something like that it's when it's bigger than you and it goes out, then you're like, wow, I've done a thing here.
You've done a thing.
Yeah.
Is there pressure for you? Because I know folks always feel away. Oh, I don't know that girl, or, but is there pressure to portray a Black woman in a certain way and to make sure you're doing it well?
I think for me, like I grew up in a way where everyone was always telling me what kind of Black girl I was, and that continues to happen. And so I really reject any of that, and I have for a long time, because I think part of my life experience has been everyone trying to diagnose what kind of Black I am.
Right.
And so I wrote this show to reflect the Black that I am, the Black that I see, the Black girls I know. And writing is about, telling something true and authentic. I can write from my perspective, right? Like that's what I can write what I know. And I think that, I would not write women that I don't know. And I would never assert, some fake stereotypical Blackness on a Blackness I haven't experienced. We're a wide range and there's a lot, but I can tell these girl stories, right? These girl stories that I know, that that we are, resonate with people, then I'm doing something true, And so beyond that, I'm not really concerned with doing something beyond what's true for me. Because that wouldn't be authentic work, if that makes sense.
Right, especially as a writer. I think also in watching this, it's hard because I think Black stuff gets criticized heavily. And it's so hard to create Black art because I think the lens is it's just such a more critical lens. Do you think that we criticize Black stuff too much?
For sure. It's because we don't have as much, right? So like I writing a show about 4 Black girls, they are not every Black woman, right? And so that's why, but Lena Dunham made a show about 4 white girls, and those are the 4 white girls that reflect the orbit she was in. She's not being held to say like, you're not writing for all white women. It's like, this girl's writing about, kind of these millennial, Brooklyn hipster type girls. And that's fine. And and they criticize the work within that framework. When you make Black work, they criticize the work of all Blackness. I can't reflect all Blackness, guys. Like that's not in this one show.
Yeah.
You know? Like,
it's not fair. You're just like, well, why do I have to deal with this in such a major scale when I'm just trying to give you like a nuanced look at Black women?
Of course, I'm minded about, all the things I'm minded about, reflecting women of the diaspora, reflecting women of all complexions, all shapes and sizes, but they still live within this world, right, that I've created. And I have to stay true to, honoring the space that I know, and my goal is to make something that people look at and say, that feels real to me, and I think that's what we've done. And I hope that a show like mine helps another Black woman who wants to write a different Black space, a queer world, or, a world of Black women in the South, or a world of Black women, like there's so many stories, the more that we have shows like this that we support and champion, hopefully it opens the door for more people to just tell small stories about Black spaces and let
let that speak for itself. I love that. Well, I know that you've been working on different iterations of this for so long. I say that because 10 years, people can throw that out there, but 10 years is 10 years. Your whole life can be completely different in that amount of time. It is. And it is. So I'm curious because a lot of the times we talk about, ambition and working hard and staying the course and fighting for it. But when you do that for 10 years, does it get harder to continue to fight for it versus giving up? Because like, how do you know when you're like, okay, so maybe that's just not a great idea, or maybe that's just not the show for the world?
I think that you have to run the play to wherever the end zone is. You know what I mean? Like I had to move to LA and try to get it made in the space where I could get it made. Like without doing that, I would have felt like I gave up,
Right.
Because I hadn't fully done the thing. I hadn't said, you know what, I'm a screenwriter now. This is what I love. This is my passion. 100% of my energy is going to this, and I'm going to try to make it happen. I think that, writing is subjective. And so of course this could have been a script that I came to LA with that didn't resonate, but I had to go to LA to know that, right? And it did resonate, and so it got made. But I think that, staying in the course means, going towards the thing to the end zone. And it doesn't mean that everything's going to work out and that there's going to be, kind of this magical ending. But I think if you go on the course, that if that's not the right, like if this wasn't the right script, then I would have found the right story, right? Because I was moving in the right
on the course while you're on it,
right? Like if it wasn't this show, then I would have figured out another show. I would have gotten another idea because I was in alignment with my purpose and I was moving towards my purpose. I am blessed and fortunate that this show was a show that people believed in and wanted to see. But I think regardless, this was what I was supposed to be doing with my life. And so it's more important that like moving into what I was supposed to be doing with my life. I say to people, it's kind of funny because I just went to make this one show and then I got into it. I was like, so what else you got? And I was like, oh
yeah, there's more.
It's like a career. I
can do more things. Exactly.
Yeah, but like, that, me, I'm like singular focused. Like,
I gotta get this show done.
And so it's crazy now for me expanding to be like, what are the other stories I want to tell? What does a career in this field look like in a much larger way than just that one thing? And I think, you've got to be open to the universe unveiling for you what's bigger than just that one thing that you think that you want,
Yeah, because there's always going to be more. And sometimes you hit the dream and then you'd be like, oh, okay, well, what else? So to not be disappointed in said dream, you got to remix the dream and keep trying.
Always growing, right? I mean, this was a huge, like, I used to have, I think you went over to my part, but I used to have this list that I would write every year for New Year's. I would write like 7 things. And this was like number 1 for like 10 years. Crazy when I was writing my New Year's list and I was like, oh my gosh, I need a new number one thing.
That's so
Like,
good. I
you
love
have a new
that.
number one thing. You have to, and that's how you stay interested, I think. When you have new dreams and when you reach something and then you have a new, like, that's how you stay interested in the thing that you have, because you're interested in what you're achieving, but you're also really excited about your plans for growth, you know?
Yeah, I love that. It reminds me of this Tracy Morgan, the comedian, he went viral on a little clip, and he was talking about happiness. He was like, people don't think they think they know what happiness is, and he was like, happiness is simpler than anything you could even think it is. It's having something to look forward to. Mm-hmm. That's it. And I was like, you know what? Yeah, it is. Because it's like how you said with the list, it's the dreams, it's the things that are motivating you and pushing you to do whatever it is that you need to do to get it done.
Yeah, it's excitement about your plans, and it's trying to have joy in the process, because the process can be long and can be very, very hard, very, very challenging.
Yes.
And, it's not just like, there's never a ta-da moment. I think that's like one of the things I realized, like, everyone would be like, Leigh, when do we celebrate? Because like, first is like, we got the show, I got shouldered. Then it's like, there's a pilot. Then it's like, and I was like, when do we celebrate? I was like, I don't know. There's still so much more to do. And then somewhere through that, I was like, let's just start celebrating all of the little moments, let's celebrate the pilot. Let's celebrate we're going for it. Let's celebrate. Like, you just have to make these little moments to celebrate all of the benchmarks, because, we got to season 1 premiere and that's amazing. But then it's like, well, what's up with season 2? So it's like, it never stops.
Legit. And your other shows and your other stuff.
Especially us as women, it's like, throw yourself a little party for all of the things,
I love it. Celebrate. Yeah. Well, in the sense of you leaning into your gifts, taking this big leap, going to LA to make it finally happen for yourself and for real, I would love for you to tell a story about this journey of yours. And what it looked like for you to start leaning into the things that you consider your gifts.
Well, I guess I'll say, like, one of the big things I tell people, and I really like to say to writers, is you have to do the writing, and I think when I got to LA, I left New York at a high level in my career, and like, people were sending me, hey, do you want to come in and interview for this job? And I had saved a little savings, but it was, LA will take your money quick. And, I remember thinking like, oh, maybe I should go interview for these jobs. And then ultimately I was like, no, I'm going to end up in a job working all the time. Mm-hmm. And then I will move to LA. And then this would have been, again, the back burner thing, and so it really, I found a freelance job, God bless Sheila Marmon of Pure Digital, who let me help her, do marketing RFPs, and, gave me enough money, to pay my bills and eat Trader Joe's and write. And I wrote, and I focused on, I've written that pilot script, the one that sold, at the time it was called Ambitious. I don't know, hundreds of times. Mm-hmm. And I emailed people and I entered all the contests and I got rejected from all of them. And most people didn't write me back, but you just keep going, and keep going. And I remember when I got to a draft that I was like, this is the one, and that was like a year in, maybe more than a year in,
Yeah.
And I was like, but this one's good, I think, and like, and it was the right one. And that one, when people started reading it, we're like, let's have a meeting, but like, there was so much writing, there was so much revising, there were so many notes, good notes, bad notes. I paid for coverage, I put it on the blacklist. Like, you do all this, but like, sharpening the skills, right? Like, keep working on the craft. Mm-hmm. When people say, what's the term? They like, practice your craft. What is the, like
that sounds like it is. Practice your craft.
Got your craft. It's like one of those kishy things people say, but it's like, it's really like, you have to practice.
Like, you really do. Like, it's all conditioning.
Yeah, like, you have to practice the work. And I think that was a rough period. That was not a fun time in my life. I did not have enough money to kick it. I was like taking the LA subway, and like, how I feel about a subway.
And in LA, that's different. That's different.
I was renting those bikes and riding them around Santa Monica, and I was, it was rough. But I went to the gym, and I went to the beach, and I meditated, and I kept writing, and I kept working. And so I think, there's that line in this show where Anderson says to Ella, "What makes you think, if you jump off the cliff, you're going to..."
Oh, I love that. The float thing. I love that.
Yeah. And I think, and she says, everyone talks about jumping on these cliffs, but no one talks about, what it feels like when you're falling. And that really was the thing. It's like, everyone's like, "Oh, Leigh, when you move to LA to pursue your dreams, they throw you a party. It's like, congratulations, you're leaving." And then you like go over there and no one's around.
Right.
It's like, another thing is like, it's like, that's the part you have to have that's the part you have to be able to sustain.
What have you learned about yourself in the time that you have made this show real? What has been a lesson that is sticking with you?
Trust your gut. There's a lot of decisions that have to be made. There's a lot of questions. There's a lot of, just critique. And it's such a collaborative medium. There's hundreds of people that make a TV show. And so there's just a lot, right? Like, there's a lot of moving pieces. There's a lot of moving parts. And I think, mostly when it's something that's a vision, you have to be secure and just trusting your gut, trusting that internal thing that you see in your head, and then trying hard as you can to understand that, like, people will expound upon that, like, you can't hold it so tight that it's just like, I only see it in my head like this, right? Like, of course I see it in my head like this, but our production designer, Diane, who does production design, sees it like this and that.
And more,
and
yeah.
What she does to what you initially have is way better than anything that you would have done alone. So like, trust your gut to articulate your vision, and then let the people do what they do.
Well, what does running the world look like to Leigh Davenport? Because, like, you remember when we used to have those talks about having it all and da-da-da-da-da. Look at you.
No, I mean, I think running the world is an ongoing effort to just keep rising, keep growing. There's always, it's not to be unsatisfied with where you are, but always to be excited about where you can go. How can we expand, and how can you keep growing, and how can you keep giving? I really do feel like this show for me was motivated out of wanting to like provide something for Black women that we needed, like we needed to see ourselves differently than we had. And keeping like that idea of service, like, how can we be of service to the world through our gifts, be of service to our world through our beings and through kindness, but, to use our talents and to use our gifts to give people things, and art gives people motivation, and it gives people inspiration. And sometimes it gives them girlfriends to hang out with if they're depressed and alone and don't want to go outside. And, keeping in mind like what you're giving, and knowing that like everything that you're accomplishing, right, ripples. And so I just kind of keep thinking about like, how can I be helpful, in this industry? How can I be helpful to Black images? How can I help people, that want to do this too, and, have stories that they need someone to tell or want to tell themselves, and hope that you change something.
Yeah. I love it. Leigh, thank you. What a pleasure it was to see you, to chat with you, and just to watch you literally run the world out here. Run your world.
And I'm so proud of you and so excited for you and what's next for you as well.
Yes. Real quick,